Good evening, friends. Hello, everyone. I am Sagar Bhalera as the Secretary of Universal Reach Foundation. I am taking this pride to welcoming welcome for all the panelists and all the attendees of this panel discussion. Today we are going to discuss about the topic which is very hot topic and relevant topic of today's age in social media, your news channel, or I'll fill with this same topic. And that topic we are going to discuss. Our topic is rape culture in India, the new normal. So when this pandemic started, we were thinking because of this pandemic, we all human beings are realize the humanitarian ground क्या होता है या मानसिक स्थिति क्या होती है, ह्यूमन राइट्स क्या होते हैं, वुमेन एम्पावरमेंट क्या होती है, और लाइफ एक्सपीरियंसेस वी अचीव्ड एंड वी रियलाइज. बट दिस हाथरस सत्याकांड के बाद हमें that all hypotheses were proved wrong. And this is the main thing that we have to discuss. And, everyone should discuss this issue. We are having with us very eminent personality with us, two journalists and one academician with us. Miss Seema Tiwari is here with us. She is a renowned journalist. And then Dr. Amar Tapadke, HOD of Geography Department, University of Mumbai. And another journalist, Pradeep Datta, is with us. So I welcome you all, and I request President of Universal Reach Foundation, Amrit Mukherjee, to give brief idea about this program and with your opening remark. Amritji, over to you.
Thank you so much, Sagarji. And I believe this particular program that is curated by Universal Reach Foundation. So I will just briefly explain our work and what we aim to do with our foundation. So we believe that educational reformation and research are two primary aspects which we focus on majorly. And throughout the pandemic, we have worked at multiple platforms and seen things from the ground level. And when certain things like this happen, where we see that women, as it is, I sometimes say and believe that we are considered as secondary citizens of this country. So, which I feel, somewhere the empowerment that we are looking at can come only from ourselves. So that is the initiative that we wish to take with this particular program. And this panel discussion is very crucial. And I'm so thankful to all the eminent panelists that we have with us today. And they have been with us, and I feel lucky to have you with us today on this platform. I wish it was we could have met personally and this discussion could have taken at a stretch. But looking at the time limitations and the online platform, you have agreed to speak at a short notice, and I am very much thankful to all three of you very much, and the participants who are here. So I believe that with this program, we wish to start off with a journey where we talk more of women empowerment, and we talk of the policy making that can be done in order to end this culture. I mean, when we were doing this topic and when we took this up and we said rape culture, many people had a doubt that is there a term like this, and let us begin using this term so that more and more people understand, and let not one rape be identified as a rape. This is a culture which is been there, and we need to understand and talk more about it. And I'm sure the panelists today will give us a lot of insights into why this topic is so relevant. And let us not just look at it in the light of Hathras incident that has taken place, but the overall impact it has had throughout the history and the incidents that keep happening. I mean, a rape happens every 30 seconds, it is said. So it is an alarming rate that we know. We need to somewhere understand and do something about it. So I hope that this session will be very insightful. And I wish to have all of you again and again coming back and talking more on the issues. So over to you, Sagarji. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Amrinji. When you are talking about that, the title of our panel discussion, rape culture in India. So, frankly, telling to everyone, I was the one person who pointed out that question, ki why that rape culture we are tagging. So, this is the platform I think where we should discuss this issue. As a male, as a female, we are having our own limitation, we are having our own identity and ideological pattern. So we need to discuss these issues, and as a journalist, as an educationalist, we need to discuss with our student also. And without taking so much of time, I would like to invite and introduce our first speaker, Smita Tiwari ma'am. She is working as an independent journalist with a team of young journalists, and mainly she is working on the fact checking. So our all information we are getting from WhatsApp University, from forwarded messages, and someone should be there to control and fact check it. And she is the one person. She is working on that fact checking website, and she's working with so many young journalists. And she has worked with the various international and national broadcasters like Sahara Samay, 106.2 Hum FM, that is Dubai based FM channel, then Times Now. And she is also, as I said, she is working with the Google News Initiative India Training Network. And also she is a media educator and teaching to media students, mass communication and journalist student के साथ वो काम कर रही है. And as I said, as a educationalist, as a researcher, when you are working with student, तो यही जनरेशन है जो आगे जाकर नई नई जिसे हम कहेंगे कि एक जनरेशन को एक तैयार करने का काम ये न्यू कमर्स मीडिया में करने वाले हैं. सो without taking so much of time, I want to request Seema ma'am, please start with your word, ma'am. Seema ma'am, over to you.
Well, thank you so much for introducing me here on this platform. And I'm glad that I'm joined with so many esteemed people here on this platform. And this evening, the topic that you've chosen, rape culture in India, a new normal. Yes, like you also, many people called me, asked me, what is this new normal all about? Why are you talking rape culture as a new normal? I told new normal is because the system is somewhere forcing on us to take it as a new normal. Why? Because the system is forcing us to take rape as a crime like just any other crime. They are not defining rape that it is something serious and heinous crime, but just like any other crime that happens every day in India. And if we see the records, if we see the data, which I don't really want to discuss much about data over here today, because rape is something that is happening every day somewhere in the corner of country across world. So this is nothing to be labeled and should be communalized or should be politicized or should divide into caste system, gender based, because rape is not only on women, it is now also happening on boys. So this is what in last few years I've come across, that this is not only limited to a gender, it has crossed over. And we can't even now label it as patriarchal, because now people are saying, many people told, it is patriarchal, it is deep rooted somewhere in our mind that Indian society is patriarchal, and so it is happening. No, slowly things have changed. Women in India have been empowered, and I feel proud when I see so many sports stars like PV Sindhu, Sania Mirza, Saina Nehwal, obviously Kalpana Chawla. If these women were not given the right kind of education, if they were not empowered, India would have not gained named on international forum. India would have not gained so much name. No, I would have not idolized many of the journalists at my age when I was a child. I had so many journalists on Doordarshan speaking news, and that was the time when I thought even I want to become a journalist. I want to do these things. So India has been and doing very good. It has empowered women. It has given name to India internationally. But yes, few crimes that happen in India, and one of the heinous crime is rape. That when you are disrespecting a woman, when you are disrespecting a child, when you are not understanding, the understanding of society gets ruined. So what is that is leading? What is the reason that the society is not understanding today? Where are we lagging? What machineries are not working? Why we want to wait after Nirbhaya 2012, when the Nirbhaya case happened? Everyone was on the road. We did candle march, we did so many things. It became so big that it grabbed international headlines. And of course, after Nirbhaya, many things did change. Laws were amended, juvenile definitions got changed. But again, what we see, the same pattern happens to follow. That means there is a set pattern in society that is happening, and the system is lagging somewhere to correct this pattern. And this pattern can only get some kind of remedial things, or some things can only be changed when the policy makers work on it. Now the new education policy has come in frame. It will get implemented when, we don't know. But will it have some scope of educating the gender? I'm talking about both the genders, whether it is girl or boy. We need education right from school. We need education in colleges. Still today, there are many schools in rural India. I had opportunity to visit one of the schools, and there I get to know that one particular topic, that is reproduction, a science chapter, was omitted. Why? Because we can't teach in the class. All are sitting, बच्चे बैठे हैं साथ में, लड़के लड़की बैठे हैं. So I told, what is the reason then? Why can't you teach? नहीं, हम पहले लड़कियों को बता देंगे, फिर उसके बाद लड़कों. That means again you are dividing the gap between the gender. Why can't you teach them together? Why can't you just somehow teach them, mentally prepare them that, see, this is a topic where we are going to talk openly and you need to understand. At the same time, it is also a duty of family, of parents. कहते हैं ना, हर अच्छाई घर से शुरू होती है. Charity begins at home. So it is a responsibility, moral responsibility of the member of family, parents, that you teach your child. If you have a girl child, if you have a boy, it is not necessary कि लड़के रोते नहीं हैं. लड़के भी रोते हैं, और रोना चाहिए. क्यों नहीं रोना चाहिए? You should cry if you have any issue. You have all the right in the world to be upset. You have all the right in the world to cry. Why are you teaching कि बस बच्चियों को पढ़ाओ, लड़कियों को पढ़ाओ, लड़कियों को लिखाओ, लड़कियों को संभालो, लड़कियों की हिफाजत करो? आप अच्छा कर रहे हो, लड़कियों को पढ़ा लिखा रहे हो, लेकिन at the same time, why everything is being thrown on the girl कि बिटिया बचाओ? This slogan itself, why can't we also say the same things to boy, that please, आप समझो, अगर लड़कियों के लिए आप 10 बजे की डेडलाइन करते हो, ये कपड़े मत पहनो, यहाँ मत जाओ, वहाँ मत जाओ, then same thing should happen to the boys. Mind your line, mind your timing, mind the way you're behaving. So there are so many things which need to be taught on the parallel lines, on the same lines. जो आप लड़की को बोल रहे हो, वही आप लड़के को सिखाओ. It can't be only one way. It can't be only one teaching. Gender is not only about one gender. It is not only women. Gender means it is men and women both. So it is collective responsibility of the society, of school, of the parents to teach both together at home at the same time. And also, when we come to the education front, the policy makers here, again, are from politics, are from bureaucracy, are from education field. We need to sit together. We need to find out the solution, that where are we lagging? What is the solution for this heinous crime that is taking place? As a society at large, even the people are responsible. That why you have to pinpoint at a girl, ki haan, she must have not worn clothes properly, or she must have gone out with some boy, with some party or something. So I think the questions that society throws after every this heinous crime happens, the rape that happens, is again mentally you are trying to rape that girl, you know. So this questioning of society must stop. And what we saw in after Nirbhaya was that it took almost a decade to get the justice. So justice in this country is a difficult road that a parent, a family has to go through. The kind of the exhaustion that they feel mentally, physically, financially, spiritually, every way the families gets broken down, you know. But finally the justice was delivered. It was not denied, but it took a hell lot of year to get delivered. At the same time, why we are saying it's a new normal? Because भाई आप समझ लो कि अगर ये crime हुआ है तो बहुत समय लगने वाला है, and you have to be mentally prepared. So this new normal, I don't want to accept. There has to be something to be done on a fast track court. Again, we saw in Hyderabad, where a veterinary doctor was brutally raped. She was burned. What happened? The cops shot at those culprits who did all these heinous crimes. यानी अगर आप कर भी रहे हो न्याय, तो आप वायलेंस को इंस्टिगेट कर रहे हो. You did not give time to the law to take some kind of notification or to deliver things that what made it, what was the reason, can we bring the culprits, can we put them behind the bars, what needs to be done. So इतना extreme होता है कि एक जगह या तो आप सालों साल इंतजार करो या तो एक जगह आप शूट कर दो. That means are we at the mercy of the system? Are the cops and the politicians going to decide that what nyay should be given, when it should be given? Why can't we all collectively, the system collectively, sit and decide something to put stop on this mentality? Where are we lagging? Are we lagging on education front? Are we lagging on judiciary front? Are we lagging to give right kind of education right from the home? And now I had this opportunity to visit one of the pre-primary schools where they were teaching good touch, bad touch. I was like, good, it is a commendable job that the teachers are doing. But then they say that it happens only one day and then we will do it next year. What about rest of the days? Are you teaching some kind of your towards the body, towards the self, towards the safety, security? So these are the few things that we as an educator, as a policy maker have to do something, because we don't have to wait for another rape to happen, for another candlelight march to happen. Imagine an 8-year-old girl in Kathua gets raped and then it happens Hindu-Muslim. The debate on television happens, it takes a different color altogether. It gets communalized. It gets religion comes in between. Why? Also in Hathras, what happened? I don't want to speak much about Hathras case because it's still under investigation. But on Hathras case, the way the police dealt with the entire situation is not worth at all. The body, the dead body should have got the dignified burial, which the family is still, each and every family has right to get their loved ones' last ritual done. If the politicians are fighting and they are coming and asking for vote on the communal, regional, caste background, then why didn't they forget that कि हिंदू धर्म में रात के 2:30 बजे ब्यूरल नहीं होता या जलाया नहीं जाता है बॉडी को? What was going on their mind? Why can't they be that understanding that yes, family is asking for something? I mean, the justice, the policing, the system, why it is becoming so violent, or why it is becoming so ignorant towards those people, those family who are already suffering. So this needs women empowerment and policy makers. Like, what is women empowerment? Women empowerment is when we educate a woman, we help her to reach out to the society, we give her opportunity to go and make her name in the society without a fear of getting raped, molested, or mistreated by any individual. Really need to work on this.
Thank you very much, ma'am. You pointed out very sensitive issues, like when we were handling that Hathras Hatyakan case. So that time, our police department, judiciary system, and politicians, they were not serious. They were not sensitive about that issue. And when we are talking about democracy, when we are talking about yes, ma'am, please.
Also the kind of new culture that has come, the new normal that has come. As a fact checker, I see so much of misinformation is happening. So much of instigation is happening on social media. Through misinformation, people are getting instigated. This misinformation, this distortion of information is also a new normal that we've seen during this time, and which is happening rampantly. A set of people, there is a missionary, an organized way of running this misinformation is becoming rampant nowadays. So even we need to look at this issue also, that misinformation has to be controlled. You can't just take on social media or media for a ride. Go ahead, please.
Right. Very well said, ma'am. But when we're discussing about this Hathras Hatyakan, we can't forget what happened to Unnao rape case victim and what happened to Khairlanji Hatyakan, which was there in Maharashtra. So that Khairlanji and Unnao based Hatyakan, and then absolutely you were talking about that जम्मू कश्मीर आसिफा हत्याकांड. सो ये सब कुछ चीजें हमें याद रखनी ही पड़ेगी कि कौन से टाइम पर किसने किस तरीके से उसके साथ काम किया. यू आर टॉकिंग अबाउट द सेम थिंग कि बैड टच गुड टच की बातें बच्चों को सिखाई जाती है, बट जो कल्टीवेशन जो बच्चों में करना है इन देयर ब्रेन के साथ, जो कुछ कल्टीवेशन थेरी जो हमें यूज करनी है, आई थिंक दैट इज मोर इम्पोर्टेंट. थैंक यू फॉर योर गाइडेंस मैम. Now we are going to move forward with the next speaker. We are with us Dr. Aparna Padke ma'am. She is head of the department of geographical department, Mumbai University, and she is our mentor. She is always there for every progressive term, every progressive happening we people are doing collectively. She is always there to guide us and give to give very good environment and speakers. So thank you very much, Aparna ma'am. I request Aparna ma'am to speak on this issue, ma'am. Over to you, ma'am. Aparna ma'am.
Ah, I'm not head of the department. Okay, Agar,
But
I'm
you was
I'm
there, ma'am.
no, no, I wasn't there.
Okay, okay.
Okay, it's fine. I'm assistant professor there. Okay, and what Miss Seema, she said, in continuation, or rather, I would like to show you some slides which I have prepared. It was a hard task because yesterday we came to know that we are supposed to speak, and then it is very difficult that way to summarize everything because it's a very complicated kind of topic, right? So I would like to share the screen with you. I hope everyone can see the slide.
Yes, ma'am. We can see.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and yeah. And if you don't, you're not able to see, just inform me because I won't be able to know whether you are able to see or not. Okay. Now, I think, yeah, when we have to look at the rate, as I was discussing with how, what is expected, from me. So, I think, let us try to understand, rape in different dimensions and contexts. Generally, when the rapes were happening, I mean, rape is the concept only in human beings. This concept is not there in animals. Okay, so animals are progressive than us. First thing. Second thing, animals have a specific time period. Okay, mating period when they basically go for sexual intercourse. Unfortunately, for human beings, such kind of a specific time period is not planned by the nature, and probably that is one of the most unfortunate things that has happened to human society. In the evolutionary, you can say, in evolutionary mode, why such kind of a you can say progress has happened in terms of in sexual intercourse, that is that is still that we unanswered question. First thing. So generally, rape is looked as a psychophysical disorder. So it is a psychopathological problem. Okay, a rapist as an abnormal who experiences the castration anxiety. So rapists actually were considered as a those who cannot have a normal, you can say, sexual intercourse, and probably they won't get satisfied. They don't get satisfied in the process, and that is the reason this constant, you can say, search for satisfaction leads to anxiety, and then they experience castration anxiety. There is always a feeling of phallic inadequacy. So uh, because of these physical, you can say, and psychological disorders together, you will find that. So in the initial periods, you will find that rape was actually considered as a psychopathological problem. Even today, you will find that in some cases, the rapist could have this kind of a psychopathological problem. Okay. Now this we are talking in terms of an individual rapist, and you will find that we have seen so many, I mean, such cases where you will find that the serial rape and serial killings out of rape that we have seen. Interestingly, you will find that such theories have been used widely to normalize the men's sexual aggressions. The men's sexual aggressions have always been normalized by saying that say if you're going to really instigate their desire, so what they can do, it's not possible for them to control and etc. etc. Uh, Now, if you look at the fundamental gender paradigm in India, you'll find that the fundamental gender paradigm, when we look at body as a space, in gender geography, we learn all these things. But when we look at body as a space, you will find that, consider female body and male body. And when we consider female body and male body, you will always find that, these are the symbolic, you can say, expressions. So when it comes to female body, you will find that the female body is, something that is very, you can say, fragile. It is something, like all the women are expected to be delicate darlings. And then you will find that when it comes to masculinity, so if you look at the concept of femininity and masculinity, you will find that the very process of socialization and the resultant production of space, you will find that in both the cases, you will find that, the production of space for women and men, it is taking place differently. And why it is taking place differently? It is simply because, the way we cast, sex into gender, and the way we actually socialize sex into gender. And then, of course, there are social constructs, which will help the regressive forces, to cast them in such a manner. So when it comes to the fundamental gender paradigm, female bodies are always considered as weak and fragile. Now, because they are weak and fragile, the second presumption comes into being, and that second presumption is actually they need to be protected. So, as they are weak and as they are fragile, so imagine, Bollywood actor, so a woman, basically surrounded by some goons, and then they're trying to, so typical Bollywood scene, and suddenly the hero appears ekdam skinny bony, and still he can fight with four these goons, and then make them run away, and then blah blah blah. So such kind of, you can say, paradigms, they are actually structured and they are fixed in general mass. So whenever it comes to masculinity, you will find that the men are, as the earlier speaker rightly said, that the men are always like strong, etc. etc. So it is same. So the female body is same, and hence you will find that, so female bodies can be forced into submission. So whenever it comes to sexual intercourse, you will find that the whole discourses, or the popular discourses, I should say, the popular discourses on sexual intercourse, they basically talk about, they show, they very much represent, that it is always the activity of man than the activity of women. So women are always shown as a passive receiver of what a man would do as a part of sexual intercourse. And this actually is one of the very important points when we look at the rape. That when it comes to rape, forcing sex upon a woman is a very, very normal practice in countries like India, in societies like these Eastern societies. Why? Because if you look at the masculine and feminine, you can say, space production vis-a-vis what sex is all about, you will find that that women are supposed to be always shy, women are supposed to be always submissive, when men are supposed to be always aggressive, men are supposed to be always dominating. And the next, you can say, understanding in the sequence, that if men are not dominating, then there is a problem with the man. And if women is dominating, then she has a lot of lust. Okay. So look at all these, associated image formations, that are taking place. So what kind of a sex relationship finally emerges, even in the normal course of life, and whether this is a sex that goes by a consent of man and women. Even in this normal situation, if you look at the sex relationship, it is the relationship of dominance in exchange for protection. So because the men are supposed to protect the, women bodies, their own women bodies, and hence you will find that, it is an exchange for protection, and that puts a social value on the untainted female body. A female body has to be untainted. A female body has to be pure. And to keep the female body pure, now what does that mean by pure? So when you say pure, that means, a man who is selected for a woman is supposed to have the sexual intercourse, but the woman is not supposed to have sexual intercourse with any other person. And hence, it is something, that is untainted. So it is pure. Now, because the female body has to be pure, so you'll find that this is the social value, that the pure women bodies will be protected by a man, and hence it is actually the relationship of dominance. So because the man is a protector of a woman body, so man also becomes the exploitator of women. As Manu comments that women are for the sexual pleasure. So, with this particular line, if you attach the next line, so because I am the protector of your body, so I am the sole person, who will take advantage of your body. And then, you are basically secondary, you are weak, you are fragile. So you are supposed to be subservient to me. And then you are supposed to be subservient to, you are actually, your job is to, or it is your ultimate, you can say, responsibility, that because I protect your body, you are supposed to give me something in return, and that is, of course, the sexual satisfaction and sexual pleasure. And hence, the heterogeneity is always the norm. Heterogeneous relationships have always been the normal relationships in the society. And hence you will find that when men and women they have such kind of relations, these relations are normal. Of course, these relations are normal under, a particular conditionalities where you will find that there is an unequal sexual relation. And hence, with these unequal sexual relationships, you will find that when we talk about these unequal sexual relationships, you will find that, hence, as I suggested you that, uh, so rape in this way is basically gendered. Okay, so the sexual relations are also gendered in this particular manner, where you will find that the heterogeneity is normal. Now, if you look at rape as a socio-cultural construct, then you will find that rape as a normal mode of exerting patriarchy. If you look at 99% of marriages, you will find that in 99% of marriages that happen in India, probably it's a big statement, but 99% marriages, you will find that it is the first experience, the sexual experience of a woman is always a forced sex. It is not a sex, that is actually by consent. And hence you will find that whenever it comes to, when you try to link rapes with patriarchy, I mean, even before linking rape with patriarchy, I would link sex with patriarchy. And you will find that sexual intercourse with patriarchy, you will find that it is a forced sex. And as we can say that, rape is a forced sex, so you will find that, for patriarchy, rape becomes a very normal mode of exerting, the patriarchal power. Uh, the earlier speaker said that it's not patriarchy, but then I would definitely disagree with the point. I definitely say that patriarchy is not monolith. Patriarchy is present in several forms, around us. And whenever if you really want to categorize, different societies on the basis of, you can say, modernization. Again, it is the westernized, concept of modernization. Then you will find that we actually come in the loop of complete pseudo modernization. We have always accepted modernization at our convenience, and not in its true sense and spirit. And hence you will find that even though you may not find patriarchy explicit in explicitly practiced in this today's society, especially when it comes to urban. Rural societies are definitely patriarchal societies, but even urban societies are not really far away from patriarchy. But only you will find that these are convenient forms of patriarchy that have been hired time to time by different forces in the societies. that are regressive as well as progressive. So, female chastity here with this socio-cultural construct, acquires a central position and a value in the very fabric of the patriarchal society. Rape as a result of greater sexual inequalities, that's what I was mentioning. But if you look at rape, you will find that rape is actually a result of a greater sexual inequalities, and hence you will find that this inequality, sexual inequality, definitely is rooted in the gender inequality, and then the kind of a gender roles and gender codes that are created in this society. And hence, rape also becomes, a normative heterosexual sexuality. And there is one interesting term when I was researching for this particular topic. You'll find that, Rosenwein actually coined one term, and the term is emotional community. According to Rosenwein, she explains, this human societies as emotional communities. And what she feels is, these emotional communities, they express a commonly shared set of emotional responses. Now, this commonly shared set of emotional responses, they are basically, the result of uh, what kind of a social, cultural, political structures, that are, that evolved over the period of time. And then, all kinds of normative, you can say, codes, that also emerged over the period of time. And then finally, what kind of history has been shared by the community, and what kind of emotional responses have been shaped by that particular community, and how they look at gender and how they look at sexuality. So all these issues, they basically are clubbed into this. So emotional society communities are those, where you will find that we as a community, we tend to respond to several, you can say, incidences that are happening around, you know, uh, in a collective emotional manner. So when, happiness is happening, you'll find that the sensitivity is expressed by some particular community. It is not the sensitivity that has been, there is a class, there is a caste, you can say, aspect to it. And you will find that I have seen WhatsApp status of people that when, when, people say that it is a Dalit girl who has been raped, immediately, some people, started normalizing the course of this particular rape, saying that, why you get divided into, Dalits and Brahmins and blah, blah, blah. Why people will not say that Dalit women? What is the problem in saying it as Dalit women? Why? Because a Dalit woman is definitely the periphery of periphery, and she's the most exploited in this scenario. There were messages by people that, why, we should stand against the rape culture, we should stand undivided, we should stand as India. This is absolute hypocritical. There is no point in, calling this a rape as just a rape on women. It is a rape on Dalit. So you'll find that, the lenses will be formed by people, and you will find that there also will be filters. So you will find that the responses, so when, this Delhi case happened, Nirbhaya, you will find that there was an outcry from almost all the sections of the society. When it comes to Dalit women, this girl and the rape on Dalit girl, there are immediately filters, that are getting applied while even reacting, while giving emotional responses. This is something, what the Rosenwein, the Rosenwein tries to explain. Interestingly, in the responses, you will find that shame, becomes a very prominent emotion. And why? Because, shame is something, that will be totally, you can say, constituted, or it will be totally formed by the way others look at that particular incident. And hence you'll find that shame disguise becomes, a very prominent emotion, in case of rape. You'll find that rapes have been used as a political control. At individual level, you will find that this rape has been, used as a symbolic crime, and it has been used as a patriarchy. It has been used, as satisfying a male ego. It has been used, for taking revenge. हाँ, खुद को क्या समझती है, हाँ इतना ज्यादा उसको ये है क्या, ठीक है, आई विल शो हर दैट व्हाट मेन आर। इस तरह का जो एक ईगो है और ये जो रिवेंज लेने का जो बात, at individual scales that is there. Secondly, at individual scales, these are mostly the known people. These are mostly the relatives and so-called kakas, mamas, and then all those kinds of dadas and ये कि जो उसका वो लड़की के साथ उसका पहचान है एंड उसका फायदा लेते हैं. Then you will find at the second level, where the rapes are, organized. This is basically gang rape. And when it comes to gang rape, it is the female body, as a substance of consumption that, oh, available. Oh, at the night she is, going with her boyfriend. That means she is a lady of a loose character. So fine, she's available. If she's available to her boyfriend, so definitely she's available. And a female body is a substance of consumption. And fine, who is going to really reveal that who has a rape? So you will find that this kind of understanding. Then you will find that the third degree of rape, and that is mass rape, genocide. And you will find that these mass rapes have been used almost everywhere in the entire world as a political weapon, and they have been used as genocides, because when you kill a woman, you actually try to end the you can say race, their race there itself. When you kill a woman, there is no scope, that the woman would become pregnant and then to deliver a baby and then she gives a continuation to that particular race. Genocides have been used absolutely as a political form. So you'll find that rape has been preferred form of sexual violence. At the same time, it has been a preferred form of political violence. Now, why rape has been used as an instrument and weapon, in at every level. So, right from your individual level to your, you can say, societal level, mass level. Why rape has been used? Because rape upon a woman or raping a woman is a dishonor not to a woman. It is not a dishonor to a woman. Please mark my word. It is a dishonor to a man who is a protector of a woman. The dishonor to a man is a dishonor to the community. A dishonor to the community becomes the shame for the community, the disguise, and then it leads to crisis. So to break the moral strength of men, these were the women. So the final statement comes, अरे खुद की लड़कियों को या खुद के वाइफ को नहीं तू बचा सका. ये जो कुछ act of shaming is there, you will find that becomes very important. And to break the morality, the moral strength of men, warriors, you will find that the opponents would use this as a, you can say, political construct. Now, how state would treat rape? That's the point. Now, state comes out with all kinds of legislation. State comes out with so many, you can say, other things. As rightly pointed out, there have been several systems in terms of education. You please tell me when I'm supposed to stop. You stop me if I'm defying my time. Okay, Sagar. Okay, please stop me
Yes,
if I'm
ma'am. Yes,
taking
ma'am.
more time. Yeah. So state as a true, so state is what? State is a regulatory, it is a political authority. And state constitutes government. And this government is expected to run, government is expected to implement the visions, the ambitions, and the, you can say, all kinds of, you can say, goals of what this state as a political authority intends to work out. Now, if state is above the government, then what will happen? State as a political authority will always try to control the government. So whatever laws and legislations are there, they will also be controlled by the state. Okay? And hence, if at all the state is a true moral community, then you will find that this is a statement by Gamble, and he made this statement in 1981, that if the state is a true and moral community, the law established by the state becomes binding to all. Why? Because state itself is a moral community. But if state is untrue, unethical and hypocritical, you will find that the individuals are released from their obligation to follow the law. There have been very strict laws vis-a-vis, this abolition of all kinds of sexual violences vis-a-vis women, children, third gender. But then you will find that why the rape culture is, why the rapes are increasing and why this culture of sexual exploitation is getting firmly rooted in, countries like India, where, you talk about Sita, you talk about Ram, you talk about so many other people, idealized kind of a situation. So, what is a rape? Rape is a gendered and symbolic crime, okay, and it depends upon accepted gender. In one of the groups, you will find that, I will just show you one, read out quickly. You'll find that, this Ukraine in 1919 and 1921, National Ukrainian Army imposed tremendous atrocities against these Russian Jews. And they targeted whom? They targeted women. And you will find that, what they did with the women, they actually they first divided men and women. And then you will find that, one girl was selected and she was raped in turn by a group of soldiers on the spot in front of the gathered Jews. The Jews were expected, the men were expected there. The other three attackers became the witness cousin until she fell on the floor, where one of the men proceeded to punch her chest and abdomen. The victim managed to run out of the house. She had been crying, but then you will find that she was unable to move. Okay. Another dragged her inside the house, raped her in turn, shot her dead afterwards. Her sister had been separated from her mother, dragged by the soldiers into the next room and raped. Her aunt had been murdered by the youngest bandit, who had been left behind to guard her but got bored with this task. Okay. And then you will find that even the 11-year-old sister of Dwight Box, the survivor, who actually described this particular incident, even this 11-year-old sister, if you look at the age of the rape victims, you will find that in 1919 to 1921, you will find that the age of the victims were ranging from age 10 to age 70. Okay, just an example. In one of the women empowerment groups, you will find that this is what India is all about. Okay, this is how the political authority is going to play with this particular craze, and how actually the whole story of this Hathras has been now fabricated in different versions. It is interesting. It is written in Marathi, but I will translate in English. What the story is. Nothing happened in Hathras. Actually, this girl, she wanted to run away with her fiance. And she, while cutting the grass, she very much, she started running away from her mother. Her mother, she brought her and then she actually cut her tongue. And then she, torn the clothes. And then she again started, cutting the grass. And then she did, oh, where is my daughter? And such kind of a drama. And then, suddenly they found her wounded. And then, they brought her to hospital. From there, they brought her to Delhi. And then again, they brought her back. But, as her mother was the real culprit, so you will find that, all important political people, in their place, even police, they helped the mother, okay, to burn her body. Look at, the way they are so gracious. And then now, look at the mother. Now, mother and, that brother of the victim, now they are demanding money, and that's 250 lakhs. Okay. Now, look at this. Now, what is the message? That the girl should not actually go for any kind of a farming operation. Okay. Doesn't she understand? She's not supposed to at all support, her family. Look at Nirbhaya. What happened to her? If she would have been married and if she would have had the sindoor in her mang, then rape hua hota kya? Nahi. Why you need boyfriend? Okay, but it's fine, if the boys they have many girlfriends. Okay, actually the problem is, of the guys, they cannot control their emotions. All the guys, all the boys, they are actually good. They have all kinds of good sanskaras. But the girls, आजकल के जो लड़कियां है वो उनको इंस्टिगेट करते हैं. These लड़की जो लोग रहते हैं, they become, get professional education. They earn money, and then they become totally control. They lose control. Okay, so they need to be taught. They need to be taught lessons. They need to be shown where their place is. And these girls, they don't have any kind of sanskar. And these girls, they should learn from all these NPs. These NPs, what they say. Okay. And sometimes it happens, Ray. Like even if she is with the husband, if everything is there, all the symbols of being married is there, but still, how men can control, their impulses. The boys are so sanskari, that they can't control themselves. Even the 8-year-old girl, she also, instigates them. Okay? So, all MPs are requested to guide, the women from the age group of 8 to 80, that how actually, they are supposed to behave so that all the boys will be safe in this country. This is written by Jyoti. I think the new normal is now normalizing the rape. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Aparna ma'am. You were talking about that rape culture, the socio-economic and socio-political zone, how it is involved in this rape culture, and how we people are normalizing that rape culture. Very well, well manner you have explained to us. थैंक यू मैम. एंड जब आप वो बात बता रहे थे कि किस तरीके से इंफॉर्मेशन को मिसगाइड करके बताया जाता है, इवन आई हैव सीन सो मेनी व्हाट्सएप मैसेजेस जहाँ एक इस तरीके से कुछ थ्योरी बनाई गई और वहां बनाने के बाद लड़कियों को कैसे पेट्रियार्कल सिस्टम में रखा जाएगा, कैसे उनको जकड़ा जाएगा, इवन आई हैव सीन. सो थैंक यू वेरी मच मैम, आपने इस प्लेटफॉर्म पर आकर वो सब कुछ बातें हमारे साथ शेयर की. थैंक यू मैम. नाउ we'll move towards our next speaker. We are having with us Mr. Pradeep Datta. So when we were talking about this panelist, we were थिंकिंग कि सब लड़कियां यहाँ नहीं होनी चाहिए, बिकॉज एज अपर्णा मैम पॉइंटेड आउट कि जेंडर इक्वालिटी की जब बात आएगी, जब ये स्त्री पुरुष समानता की जब बात आएगी, तब पुरुषों ने महिलाओं में साथ में आकर अगर उसकी बात करेंगे तो वो ज्यादा इफेक्टिव रहेगा. एंड that's the reason we wanted some very sensitive person and person from media background. It is very rare combination. Sensitive person is in media and when he is working with Times Now. So ऐसे एक senior editor हमारे साथ है, Mr. Pradeep Datta. He is senior editor at Times Now and has several years of experience in covering issues related to traditional and untraditional security. And he has done रिपोर्टिंग एट उरी एंड पठानकोट. और पठानकोट एंड उरी में जब टेररिस्ट अटैक हुआ था, दैट टाइम ही वाज देयर एंड ही डिड रिपोर्टिंग ऑन ग्राउंड जीरो. ही इज रिसिपिएंट ऑफ हाईएस्ट अवार्ड एट टाइम्स ऑफ इंडिया ग्रुप, द चेयरमैन्स अवार्ड फॉर excellence for best reporting. Then Mehboob ul Haq Award by Colombo based Regional Center for Strategical Studies for joint research with the academician from Karachi, Pakistan on Indo-Pak water politics. So he has done water politics पर भी उन्होंने कुछ काम किया है and presented so many research paper on that on national and international level, and has been the Charkha Sanjay Ghosh Fellow for Peace and Development in the year 2004 and 5. And as I said, he is very sensitive person. He writes poets also, which is based on partition कम्युनल, देन वुमेन राइट्स, वुमेन एम्पावरमेंट, इन पूरी चीजों पर वो अपनी कविताएं लिखते हैं और कविता के जरिए अपनी बात रखने की, लोगों को अवेयर करने की बात वो करते हैं. एज आई सेड कि ही इज इन मीडिया, सो इन्फॉर्म, एडुकेट एंड एंटरटेन करना उनका काम है ही, बट लोगों को अवेयर करना, उनको एडुकेट करना, ये काम प्रदीप दत्ता जी बहुत जोरों शोरों से कर रहे हैं. एंड आई वेलकम यू प्रदीप सर. Over to you, sir, please.
Sagar, thank you for giving me an opportunity to share my point of view. In fact, when I was asked to speak at number 2, I thought that today, at least, we should give all the women speakers a chance and let me listen to all of them rather than I doing all talking, because we keep on blaming the patriarchal society for whatever is happening. So today we wanted to break that kind of a trend. So that was one of the reasons I thought that let me be the last speaker. And so I will just try to take away from, in fact, what Dr. Aparna ji rightly said, that it is not a dishonor to the woman. It's basically a dishonor to the man. There's a saying, in fact, the way you treat not only your woman, the other woman, like a princess, that shows that you had been raised by a queen. That means how your mother has raised. If a man is indulging in any such things like raping, molesting, or any kind of a violence against the women, that means it is a dishonor to his family. It is a dishonor to the mother who has failed to raise them, dishonor to the parents who have failed to raise a boy in a proper way. So that's how we should think, rather than trying to be calling it a disgrace or dishonor to the woman. I think if we are going to change this kind of a narrative, the things are definitely going to change. We have to think on those lines. And yes, the misinformation and the disinformation campaign, as you rightly said, Hathras, certain people had been trying to change narrative. That's really painful. But what's really more painful is that when, in fact, the things are being justified by the women. Because for the last 3-4 days, I had not been able to, in fact, sleep properly. I found that many of the women who had been running the hashtags and this, they had been questioning what really happened in Rajasthan. Why you are not talking about Rajasthan? I said, okay, I'm not expecting anything from the Congress, because Congress being a political party in opposition, they will be trying to rake up the issue what they think is the best suited to them as a political party. But what is really a matter of concern, that being a woman, instead of talking about this particular issue, you are trying to rake up that what is happening in Rajasthan, because you are trying to politicize things, and that is a justification. That really is a worrying trend. I think the she factor will have to really play a very important role here, because if the women will not be standing with the women, the patriarchal society is going to spread its tentacles, and then it's going to be really very difficult. And what is important is that today we talk about Chandrayaan, we talk about touching the moon, but I think though no rocket science is required to understand that there is something we, even up in the 21st century, what as a man we fail to understand is something called consent. That's how the difference between a toy and a woman, the difference between the rapist and the victim, and then sometimes the victim and the villain. So these are the things which I think we'll be focusing on, because after such an academic discourse from Dr. Aparna ji and Seema, where she tried to touch the raw nerve, I'll be talking about certain things, how it is really very important. Because women, because of the gender and sexual identity, are marginalized. Gender is a social construct, sex is a biological construct, and both the power, these dynamics of patriarchy, and both these identities have multiple marginalization when combined with caste, minority religion, nationality, or race. And often it has been seen that weapon, as in fact Aparna was also talking about how it has become the weapon of the destruction also. When we talk about the destruction, it's all about the mental destruction, it's about psychological destruction, it's also about the physical destruction, where we try to, because a reason being that women have been reduced to the body. And when the women is reduced to the body, it's because honor, and she was talking about the purity also, the honor gets associated, the honor of the community gets associated with that body and the purity of the body. And at the end of the day, we have seen, I still remember when in the early 90s, there was a film called Bombay. And I found that a section of the people, they were against that film, because some religious clerics, they said that this is not a good thing. Because then later on, I tried to inquire what was the reason. A reason being that in that film, it's a Muslim girl having an affair with a Hindu boy. And there was one scene when the girl, there is a song called Tu Hi Re. And while the girl was about to meet that man, the Hindu man, all of a sudden, her burqa, that wheel, gets stuck up and tangled in that grill, the iron grill. She leaves her burqa aside. That means on one side, it's a love that's pulling her. On the other side, it's a religion that's pulling it. And she runs, and finally, she's in the arms of that man. She decides to go with the man she loves. And I found that many of the clerics, they were out, they were protesting, they were raising slogans. I was too young to understand this thing because for me it was a film and it was not a reality, something not happening in reality. So why all of a sudden that you and try? So I asked one person that he tried to explain me. He said there is an anthropological reason behind that because it's a kind of a mindset that's going on for so many years. There's called something called Zar. There's something called Zamin. That there is something called Zan. Zar means the wealth because a Raja, whenever he used to invade the other kingdom, the first thing he used to have how much wealth this Raja is having, the king is having, the Badshah is having. The second is that how much land he's going to occupy because only then he's going to be a conqueror, and how many women he's going to have in a harem. And that is the only way you were also inflicting, in fact, that kind of hitting that ego of that other kingdom. Also, see, we have taken so many women from your harem. Now, instead of 100, we have got the 200 women in harem. So that has been in our psychology for so many years. So that even today, even if it is in the films, also the virtual medium, we are not ready to lose women. And so because it got connected somewhere with the honor, and it has been creating problems. Today, so I will be talking about certain, because I'm not an academician, but yes, I had been interacting with the people. I've seen that how sometimes it is not only that it's only the misinformation, disinformation campaign, but sometimes we have seen that how the victim is also being used to exaggerate things. There had been one very important case we have seen that's called Kanan Poshpura, because who had been in fact keeping an interest in the conflict in the Kashmir Valley. What happened in the early 90s, it was in the month of February, the cordon and search operation was launched by the army. And after that, there was a hue and cry in the village. Some people said that more than 23 women have been raped. So after a few days, the deputy commissioner went to that area. He came out with the report. He said that 40 women have been raped. By the time the deputy commissioner came to his office, the story was there, more than 60 women have been raped. Finally, there was a Press Council of India team that was led by then journalist B.J. Varghese, who is no more. In fact, he went to that place, and by the time he went, that people started saying it was 100 women were raped. And when he also came and he submitted a report, he realized that it was more of an exaggeration, but still date, nobody is ready to believe what actually B.J. Varghese has seen and done. So by the time he came back, they said that whole village was raped. So because reason was that there was no mainstream media. At times, presence of mainstream media also creates a problem, because nowadays we have seen that it depends on the region and the place where the rape has taken place. Accordingly, some channels too, or some newspapers try to highlight things. That's really a very unfortunate thing, because rape is a rape. That should be highlighted the same way, because if you will not do that, that way you'll be creating more problems. So what exactly is happening that we are trying to control? The media, in fact, is trying to control the mindset, because they are trying a different kind of a narrative, because that narrative, instead of supporting that victim, that narrative is supporting more the state and the present the regime. So that way it is not a good thing. So we have not to support any kind of a political party. We have to speak for the victim rather than speaking for the villain. But unfortunately, what is happening nowadays is that for the ratings, sometimes it's more like speaking for the villain than for the victim. So that's really very unfortunate thing that's happening. So B.J. Varghese submitted a report. In that report, what really has happened now, it has been 30 years. The women who was at the age of 20 that time, because everybody, separatist element, they came out, they said that whole village have been raped. Now that 20-year-old woman must be 50 right now, who was 15, she's 45 right now, and who was 30, she's 60 right now. Not a single woman in that village is married, because rape was like a shame for that area. So not a single person, the people who had been trying to be a champion of that cause, those separatist element who had been speaking, they preferred to get all those brides from, in fact, Pakistan, whether it was Yasin Malik, whether it was Sajjad Ghani Lone, but nobody ever thought that, yes, because they were the champion of the human rights that time. None of them really thought that they should be marrying any of the women from that Kanan Poshpur area. But because they were busy trying to malign image of the armed forces, there had been incident. I'm not saying that rape didn't take place. There were few cases of the rape, but exaggeration had been there, because that time the rape was used as a weapon to malign image of the country, and also to portray India in bad light and to demonize armed forces, because that thing also happens in a conflict zone. And that was the time when the matter was taken up in the United Nations. The European Union also started targeting India. They also started questioning India, why this thing has happened, how come the armed forces, because Indian armed forces has got a history, it has got a glorious past. So how come the armed force, which is considered to be one of the best in the world, can ever indulge in such things? So this thing also happens. But then this is not the only thing that happens. Now I'll give you another example. there was a rape. In fact, Sagar mentioned about earlier. But I object to one thing, Sagar. You took the name of the girl. That is the worst thing which we do, because you know what? Problem right now is there are two things. One is the criminalization of politics, and then there is a politicization of crime. And that is exactly what happened in case of the Kathua rape case, when 8-year-old girl was murdered. People started coming out with different theories. I still remember when that thing happened, I, as a reporter, covered that incident. We talked about that there has this incident taken place. Initially, it was like any crime reporter, we covering things. We came out with details. That all of a sudden, I realized that somehow the people from the Kashmir Valley, they got more interested in that. The first thing they did, they tried to disclose the name of the girl, because when you try to disclose, you want to give a communal color to that, because they knew that in this case, the people who had been arrested, they belonged to a different community. So they were Hindus. So the girl was, by giving a name, they were trying to tell the world that it was a Muslim. And here it was, see, intention was not basically they wanted that the criminals to be punished, but it was a malafide intention. Sometimes the media also plays a very dirty role, where they try to further polarize the society, because it started helping the political parties also who had got the vote bank in Kashmir Valley. They also started helping those journalists. And somehow the people in the Jammu region, they thought that, no, this thing had not happened. And unnecessarily, they started supporting the people who were involved in the crime. And that because they said that it was like about Jammu pride. See, what was the Jammu pride for them? Jammu pride was not about the same Jammu which talks about Mata Vaishno Devi, the same Jammu that talks about goddess Durga, but same Jammu was not talking about the 8-year-old girl who had been killed, who had been raped and killed, and then her body was thrown somewhere in the forest area in Kathua. Nobody was talking about that. The only thing was that people had made it an issue of honor, because they thought that it will be giving a bad name to the Hindus, it will be giving a bad name to Jammu. And what the worst thing was, the people who were supposed to be the guardians of law, like the Bar Council, the Bar Association. Bar Association also took out a protest. First time in the history of Jammu and Kashmir, it was not that they were speaking for the victim. They had took out the protest, and they were supporting the people who had been responsible for that, because they said there should be a CBI, in fact, investigation. No problem with the CBI investigation. Government should have gone for that. I don't know why they didn't go for it. But the problem was the way it was, in fact, projected. Somehow it gave a communal tinge to whole episode. And then second thing was, it was leading to the polarization. It was helping one particular party in Kashmir Valley, and the other political party in Jammu, they were trying to take advantage of the situation. And the last worst thing was that rape case was that some people, they formed Hindu Ekta Manch. And see, holding tricolor in their hand, they started protesting. See how the nationalism and patriotism was misused in this particular case, because they said, we'll be blocking this national highway. That was the Pathankot National Highway. And they wanted to block that. They said that we will not allow the vehicles to move, because these people who had been arrested, they are nowhere involved in that rape. But nobody was, in fact, talking about that victim, that 8-year-old girl. And you know how sometimes the people start distorting. A Guardian carried a story. And you know what happened? There were two of the ministers from the BJP, they were part of that rally. One was Chandra Prakash Ganga, and another was Lal Singh. He also was a part of rally organized by Hindu Ekta Manch. And I interviewed Ganga. I asked him a question. I said, Gangaji, you had been to this place? He said, yes. I said, why you were a part of that rally? He said, I was sent by the party. So I went to that place. I said, but did you go to that village, ever try to inquire from the parents who have lost their daughter, whose daughter was brutally raped? And what about their psyche, the kind of fear psychosis that this incident has led to? He said, no, I didn't go there. I said, you can be there, but you didn't travel just 2 kilometers away. The parents of that girl had been putting up. You should have gone there also, because you are not the representative of one particular community or one particular region. You represent the whole of the states, because you are one of the mantri. So how come you do that? And that, you know what, after that interview, it was such a strong interview. I felt so good after that. That was such a strong interview. The finally BJP had no other option, but he made Lal Singh as well as Ganga to resign, because Lal Singh was the other minister. He was also a part of that rally. I asked him the same strong questions to him. You can find those interviews still on the YouTube. So I felt so good. But you know what really happened? The same person, the same Pradeep Datta, who was considered to be very nationalist, who was considered to be patriotic, who always spoke for India, all of a sudden, you know what, I was seen as a sold out by some people. They felt that I was siding with one particular community. I tried to explain them. I had never, ever been siding with any community. What I was trying to do, I was trying to get justice to the family of this girl. And what was unfortunate that normally we see something appearing in the foreign media is seen as a gospel truth. And the Guardian carried a story. I got a call from office. They said that, are you sure that the parents of the girl are alive? Because the girl was adopted by other people and her biological parents were also alive. Just 2 days before the Guardian story, I had interviewed the biological parents of that girl, because they are from the nomad community. They moved from one pasture land to other. I traveled about 120 kilometers. I was somehow able to contact them. Those people hardly understood the politics behind this, because everybody was trying to play politics over the issue. So I asked, I got a call from office. They said, have you read the Guardian story? I said, what is in the Guardian story? They said that you should have gone through that story. The Guardian story is written by someone who is a known activist belonging to one particular community. He is writing that the parents of the girl are dead. They are no more alive. I said, but I spoke to them. See how certain people, they are trying to distort facts, a misinformation, a disinformation campaign, trying to change the whole narrative. That I said that you go look at the footage, because even after seeing the interview, certain people were not ready to believe that they were the real parents, because they were going by the gospel truth, so-called gospel truth that has appeared in the Guardian by some vested interest who had come out with the story, misfed, in fact, being fed by someone here in this area, and they had come out with the story. So that was a really very unfortunate thing that in fact polarized the society. And you know that the girl belonged to the Gujar community. Then I tried to explain. I got a chance to speak in one of the conferences. I said, today you call me that I am not a patriot because we carried out this story here on Times Now. You feel that we have been trying to help other community. I think you need to understand this Gujar community. They are the eyes and ears of Indian forces for the last so many decades. If you look at the area, whether it's a Punch along the line of control, whether it's a Rajouri along the line of control, whether it's Gurez along, whether it's a Kupwara, these are the Gujar people who are settled there. The Muslims are settled there. They are the ones who are providing information to security forces about the terrorists crossing over to this side. So never ever try to, in fact, malign them. Never ever try to play such a dirty politics, because that way you will be simply making this patriotic nationalist community sit in the lap of the separatists, what exactly they really wanted. And see how within hours I saw that this story was in fact made to be taken up in the United Nations also, because it was not basically a crime story. There was basically people who were working on an agenda where they wanted to disgrace India, demonize Hindus, and they tried to pit one community against the other community. That was in fact how the politicization of the rape takes place. That's really very unfortunate thing that really happens. The problem is that the rape nowadays in India, it has become normalization of the violence against the women. Then there's a ritualization of the violence against the women. Then there is again acceptance of the violence against the women. And then there is a consumption of the violence against the women, because we consume. The more we are able to consume the violence, we basically are amplifying the silence. And when we are amplifying the silence, that's a more dangerous thing. The moment we start amplifying the silence, what we do is that we are in fact creating that space where we are not talking about the victim. We try to support the villain, as is happening in case of Hathras. So there are so many factors that's really playing a role. And then there had been one more case, an interesting case, because in Kashmir Valley, there was about the Shopian rape case. The rape that had never happened, but they wanted to project it as a rape because there was opposition party. They wanted to, in fact, that time corner the Umar Abdullah government. He was the chief minister of the state. The two girls, the two ladies, they were crossing one of the river, because when it's a rainy day, normally there is a flooding of the river. They were crossing that river, and all of a sudden they got washed away, and their body was recovered after 2 days. But there were certain elements, they wanted to take advantage of the situation. They spread a story, the rumor. See how rumors at times are spread, especially in the conflict zone, and rumors have got the wings. They just fly like anything, and they can just occupy the mind space. Even if today you go to Kashmir Valley and talk to the people there, they will say their rape had happened. One of the journalists from the other TV channel, he came out with a report. He said that no rape has taken place. The girls have basically, both these ladies, they were crossing that river. They got drowned in the river because of the flash flood. You know what happened? There was a death threat for that person. There were people, and there were other journalists who were jealous of his work because they didn't get that order. He was able to highlight. So they wanted that. They also started siding with the opposition party, and they also started siding with the terror organization, and they ensured that that man gets eliminated. So that was in fact a dirty situation. At times the jealousy factor among the media houses also lead to so many problems. That is what happened in this particular case. I still remember I was in Kashmir Valley while I was talking to that journalist. One of the persons said, "Why you are talking to the journalist of that TV channel?" I said, "He's a friend. We had started working together because I also came. Why I should not?" He said, "Oh, he has got a terror threat." I said, "Then what? He has got a terror threat, but at least I know that what he has projected and tried to highlight, and that is the best thing. I got that order, I would have also come out with the same story. I think my fate would have been the similar. I would have also been issued the death threat." So why you are trying to, in fact, trying to promote a kind of a culture where we are not able to speak truth? So we have not to promote that kind of a culture. That's really happened. So this is what had happened in the Shopian rape case. In this, finally, you know what? There was so much pressure on the doctors. Doctors were asked to tell that, see, this was a gang rape. And who had committed a gang rape? It was the security forces. Obviously, they tried to do that. And then, you know, the statement that came from the Mehbooba Mufti side, she said, Mehbooba Mufti was that time not the chief minister of the state. She has to be very sensitive. She has to be very sensible because she had been the member of parliament. How come you come out with a statement where you're trying to give a communal color and communal tinge to the rape that had not taken place? She said that after committing a rape, the vermilion was applied, sindoor was applied on these two women. And see how dangerous the statement was. It was not only about the expression of the power. It was not only about the passion. It was not about the expression, as it is not a passion. It's basically an expression of power where the man is trying to dominate, having a control and over the woman. So she was trying to give that communal color that see how Hindu India security forces were trying to rape the women in Kashmir so that there more and more people are instigated, playing with their emotions and sentiment. They come out on the street and they topple the government of Umar Abdullah. She was, at the end of the day, it was all about the power game the opposition was interested about. And you know, after several months, when we went and spoke to the family members, there was so much pressure on the family members even till date. You will go and ask the brother of that girl who died in that because of the drowning. He will say, "I will not utter a word," because he will not on camera utter a word, because he knows that if he is going to say that it was not a rape, he will be killed. Because after that, there were so many protests that more than 80 people died during those protests that continued for months together. So 80 lives were lost because of the rumor, because of the vested political interest, because of this problem. And that really happens in certain areas also. But what is more dangerous is that when we, in fact, collude with the system and we try to create problem. And now why all these things are happening, Albi? Because I know it's less time. I'll be talking about certain things. Like you need to understand about the sex ratio thing. The sex ratio, women-child sex ratio, if you look at it, in most of the states here, it should have been otherwise 105 men and the 105, the 100 girls. But it is normally 1 to 12, 120 to 100. So there is a gap. That's also one of the contributing factors that leading to a rape. I had once written about that, and why I'm saying that the women have to play a very important role even than men. That's why today I wanted to listen to both the ladies first rather than doing all talking myself. Reason being that Tan par pehra, because you said that I'm a poet, also I write certain things. So I thought that I should recite few lines also. Reason I wrote these lines to explain the pain that the girl has to go through when she's pregnant. तन पर पहरा भटक रहा मन साथी केवल है सूनापन मैं भी रोती हूं अकेले में जो फंस गई इस झमेले में तन पर पहरा भटक रहा मन साथी केवल है सूनापन मैं भी रोती हूं अकेले में जो फंस गई इस झमेले में तन पर पहरा क्या it's the pehra of the ultrasound because the mother-in-law is taking the daughter-in-law to that clinic. She wants to check the gender of that baby, whether a boy or a girl. They want to in fact check that. So ultrasound ka pehra is there. तन पर पहरा भटक रहा मन साथी केवल है सुनापन मैं भी रोती हूँ अकेले में जो फंस गई इस झमेले में नारी कल तक थी जो प्यारी आज लगे है वही भारी कल कमला परसों बिमला फिर नुसरत की है भारी. So this disease is not going to stop at the doors of Punjab, Haryana or other states where they want to have a control over the land holding because they feel if it is going to be son, the property will be with them. So it has to be, now we have to in fact need to change laws also. The girls also need to have equal control over the property. It should not only be the men. Because if you look at the school form, I still remember one of my cousins, her husband had left her, they were not living together. And when her daughter was to be admitted in a school, she wanted that there should be a column where there should be the mother's name. There were not many problems because every column it has to be the father's name. And even today, the smaller things you have to see that you have to understand these things where we have to really work upon. So some of the things have really changed, but many more things have to change. So this skewed sex ratio, the lopsided, where we have seen that how the number of the men as the boys as compared to the girls are more. So that's also one of the reasons. Then there is about the honor killing. So because its honor of the girl is being in fact associated with it. I have written the few lines which I'll be trying to recite also. लगा रखी है बेड़ियां मेरे इन पांव को, ढूंढती है सखियां मेरे उस गांव को, जहां तितलियों की तरह आजाद उड़ती फिरती थी कभी, आज बंदी पड़ी हूं चारपाई के ठूठे से सभी. They are just shackled with that one of the legs of the charpai. The women who were just flying like the butterflies, they were azad. So no more azad. What exactly is happening? 21वीं सदी भी आके दस्तक दे निकल गई, बंदिशों के जालों में जकड़ी अपनी ख्वाहिशें निकल गई. यहाँ दिलों की धड़कनें भी डरा धमका देती, आईने में एक खौफनाक सूरत दिखा देती हैं. प्यार करना तो पहले कभी पाप ना था, मार दे बेटी को ऐसा कोई पाप ना था. अब बन गई है सियासत का अड्डा मेरे गांव की चौखट, मेरी खुशियां उसे दिखती नहीं क्योंकि समाज को खुश रखने से उसे फुर्सत नहीं मिलती. So honor killing, if a girl has an affair with a boy, the family member come to know about that because the association that honor is somewhere connected with the purity of the girl. Even if she's moving around with the boy, they're studying together. It's a normal exchange of the notes also. We've seen how Khap Panchayats have been coming out and they're passing diktat and where the girls have been killed. So this is where actually we have to work. We have to raise our voice. We have to ensure that we have to speak about these things. We have seen this thing happening during the partition also. What really happened? Many of the women, when there was a partition or when the Kashmir was, they took away the women from this place. The Muslims took away to Pakistan, and the Hindus and Sikh women were taken to that part. Hindus and Sikhs took over the Muslim women, they brought them to this place. And then there was a treaty between the two countries. They decided that let's get those women back who had either stayed back there or who had been forcibly taken. You know what had happened? What had been the fate of those women? I interviewed some of them. I realized when those women came over to this place, they were not accepted by the men because for them, as Dr. Alpnaji was rightly saying, because they were no more pure for them. Though Pakistan still accepted many of them, but here in India, the Hindus and Sikhs were not ready to accept. You can very well understand why many of the women, they chose not to come back because they had accepted that kind of an order in a situation where they were putting up. So they did not want to come back. So here it is, I think, where the mindset is to be changed. The man has to really understand what has been the fault of that woman, why we are just trying to say. And I will like to, before I end, because Hathras had been something, एक मासूम ने फिर आज अपनी जान गंवा दी, दरिंदों ने दिखाई हमानियत, सिस्टम ने भी उस पे अपनी मोहर लगा दी. आज फिर एक मासूम ने अपनी जान गंवा दी. छटपटाती रही उसकी माँ उसका चेहरा देखने को, छटपटाती रही उसकी माँ उसका चेहरा देखने को, बेदर्द सिस्टम ने उसे छटपटाती चिता की बलि चढ़ा दी. आज फिर एक मासूम ने अपनी जान गंवा दी. कहते थे अब एक और निर्भया न होगी, कहते थे अब एक और निर्भया न होगी, तुमने इंसानियत की वो आखिरी लकीर भी मिटा दी. दरिंदे सिस्टम के हाथों एक और निर्भया बना दी. We have made one more Nirbhaya because what actually we are trying to do is we are trying to legitimize, we are trying to justify, we are trying to give enough space to the people who are responsible for this thing. But the one question remains which the judge in Kathua case asked. He said, I don't know what is the reality. These were the last lines of the judgment when he in fact gave the life imprisonment to the culprits. He said one reality is there, that 8-year girl was raped and she had died. And in this Hathras case also, I want to say, the people who are running those hashtags asking question, why not Rajasthan, why not South India, why not other state? Because it's not about the Congress versus BJP. It is about, in fact, a disgrace. It's about the villains versus victims. So it is not about Congress versus BJP. It is not about one state versus other state. Please stop doing all these things. It is all about the victim versus villain. Let's speak for the victim. Let's come forward, talk for them. Only then we are going to change the system. Otherwise, there will be no end to all those Nirbhaya, and we'll keep on reporting about this thing, and it will become a normal because we report for 2-3 days and automatically we forget, then it becomes the thing of the past. We have to do a follow-up as a journalist. Whatever rape story is there, we should not forget the story. Neither we should allow the nation to forget the story, because that thing has to remain in their conscience that such things will not be tolerated. So we should go for the follow up of the story. Normally, that thing is not happening. So what happens? That one rape, and then we move towards the switch to the other rape. 14 rapes. That after every 14 minutes there is one rape in the country. So how come we tolerate that? So this new normal has not to become normal if we want to stay normal. Otherwise, we have not to call women, but it will be the abnormal man who will not be taking care of things. Thank you, Sam. Thank you, everybody, for the patience.
Thank you very much, Pradeep ji. You just explained the ground report of that Kathua rape case, and same time you were talking about that how political parties are trying to politicize that incident, and the role of media also you very well explained, sir. So we are having so many media students with us, so they are commenting on your speech also in the chat box. Thank you very much, sir. So we are having some questions. We'll take 2-3 questions for our panelist, Dr. Aparna Phadke ma'am. There is one question for you. So, does unequal sexual relationship means what? That one student is asking. What is unequal sexual relationship?
Okay. So unequal sexual relationships, if you try to look at several levels, social level, you'll find that at the individual level, you will find that, it is a relationship between a man and a woman. And where you will find that, what kind of a space has been given uh, for the sexual desires of the women. That becomes a question. That the sexual desires of a man, they get easily expressed and they are also acceptable, okay, in the society. But when it comes to a woman, and if she is having a sexual desire, so what kind of a space is basically provided, or what kind of a space is there in our society and social structure for a woman to get expressed sexually? Okay, that is there. So, when it comes to a bedroom drama, you will find that, how women and men are placed, at that level. And as I was mentioning that, in most of the cases now, urban societies, you will find that at least there is certain knowledge and information, scientific information. But you will find that whenever it comes to the other, you can say, societies that are not that exposed to such kind of you can say information. I'm just saying information. I'm not talking about scientific information. I'm just saying information. So whenever they're talking about information, you will find that even at their level, such information is not available. So basically, how it is, what kind of a space is there? That is a question. Secondly, you will find that when it comes to a at a community level, so, so there are different forms and expressions of sexuality, and these different expressions of sexuality comes in the form of homosexuality, and you will find that bisexuality. So, what kind of a space we offer, even to such kind of expressions, in case of society, and hence, whenever you talk about these social inequalities and sexual inequalities, you will find that sexual inequalities, are basically these inequalities.
Thank you, ma'am. There is one another question, and which is I think which is very important. So, does 18 plus web series, that adult web series, adult content वाले जो web series है, that movie and pornography affects the mindset of the teenagers to include into sexual offense? रजिंदर सर एंड सीमा मैम, आप भी इस पर अगर बात करें तो मुझे लगता है कि और वो अच्छे से इलाबरेट हो सकता है. रजिंदर सर एंड सीमा मैम. Seema ma'am, is she there? Seema ma'am?
Yes, certainly. होता है. Yes. Listening to this question, जो question अभी आपने कहा, जो भी वेब सीरीज और जो भी टीवी पे दिखाया जा रहा है, जो भी कंटेंट हमें सोशल मीडिया पर मिल रहा है, और अगर वो कंटेंट कहीं ना कहीं किसी वुमेन की बॉडी को दिखा रहा है या कुछ इस तरह की फिजिकल इंटीमेसी दिखा रहा है जिसे हम पॉर्न कहते हैं, ऑब्वियस है कि बहुत सारी चीजें हैं जिस पे हमें कंट्रोल करना है, बहुत सारी चीजें हैं जिस पर कि मिनिस्ट्रीज को कलेक्टिवली कुछ ना कुछ इस प्लेटफॉर्म पे करना है, कुछ ना कुछ कंट्रोल और रिस्ट्रिक्शन करने हैं। तो ऑब्वियस है कि अगर कुछ आपको कंटेंट फ्री अवेलेबल मिल रहा है इंटरनेट पर, और आपके पास अगर मोबाइल डेटा फ्री है या कम पैसे में है, और आजकल सबके हाथ में मोबाइल है, डेटा कम पैसे का हो गया है, और इंटरनेट वाईफाई हर जगह है, सो व्हाई नॉट? दिस इज वन ऑफ द मेन रीजंस ऑल्सो कि फोन देखकर बहुत बच्चे जो आजकल स्कूल और कॉलेज के हैं, वो अकेले में बैठ के क्या देख रहे हैं, माँ बाप को कुछ पता नहीं चल रहा है। और ये सारी चीजें जो है कहीं ना कहीं धीरे धीरे एक सर्कल बनता जाता है लड़कों का या उन लोगों का जो आपस में शेयरिंग भी करते हैं, सिर्फ देखते नहीं है बल्कि शेयर भी करते हैं, बताते भी हैं एक दूसरों को कि क्या अभी लेटेस्ट चल रहा है इस वेब सीरीज में, या क्या अभी लेटेस्ट वेबसाइट्स है। सो बहुत कुछ हो रहा है इन सब सीरीज को लेकर, इन सब वेबसाइट्स को लेकर, ये फ्री कंटेंट जो अवेलेबल है। सो आई थिंक we need collectively to do something on this, and of course जिस तरह से सोशल मीडिया पर आजकल हम देखते हैं कि पूछा जाता है आर यू 18 years plus, ये क्वेश्चन आता है, बट हाउ इज दैट क्वेश्चन answering the question that are you 18? How will that person who is putting that question on behalf of the site come to know I'm 18? तो ये कुछ चीजें हैं जो सोचने वाली बात है कि क्वेश्चन तो पूछा जाता है आर यू 18? आजकल कितने लोगों के फेसबुक पे पेजेस हैं, कितने लोगों के ट्विटर पे अकाउंट्स हैं, कितने लोगों के कितनी सोशल मीडिया पे अकाउंट है, जो कि टेक्निकली देखा जाए तो एक सर्टेन एज ग्रुप से शुरू होना चाहिए। बट हु इज देयर टू वॉच दिस, टू कंट्रोल दिस, टू अंडरस्टैंड दैट वेदर आई एम 18 or not? Everything is free on social media, internet today. At the click of everything I'm getting on my TV, on my remote, on my mobile, sorry. There has to be certain regulation. Who is going to find out that I'm 18 or not? This is the biggest question.
Correct,
It is
ma'am.
somewhere our moral responsibility. I don't know now how do I put this, but yes, we have to find out solution for so many things.
Okay, thank you,
Pradeep
ma'am.
can continue.
Pradeep sir, please comment on this, and also one question for you. You can take this question also with your explanation. How, as journalists, media student, and learners, as a whole youth, we can do to take up those cases or bring justice to the victim? So they are basically they are asking about how media can help to get justice. Sir, please continue.
See, I'll be taking on this question about the social media. What exactly is happening is that nowadays the relationships are becoming quite fragile. The problem is that it's all about the parenting also. There is called something called the check and balance. I still remember that on several occasions I told my father that we should have one television set in my bedroom also. He said that no, we'll be having a television set in a lobby or the drawing room, because where we sit, we'll be having a dinner, at least we'll be talking to each other. The moment you will be having a television set in the bedroom, so you remain confined to your own television set, you'll not be coming out, because there is hardly any time when we as a family get a chance to mingle with each other, talk to each other. The problem is that the parents are hardly giving any time. So in information age, we are not going to stop this information. That's going to remain there. But yes, we have to change our lifestyle, where the parents have to understand what actually their child is looking into when he is asking for the cell phone. Problem starts where I have seen that from many of the families, because when the mother is really very busy, तो वो क्या कहती है कि ये बेटा तुम पकड़ो मोबाइल फोन, तो मैं काम करती हूँ. So because that is the time otherwise she is going to scold the son or the daughter also. I'm not going to hand over the mobile phone to you. Most of the time you're only wasting your time on the mobile phone or the television also. But when she is working, because she is trying to devote her time and attention somewhere else, she puts on the television. And so problem कहाँ खराब कर रहे हैं? हम ही उन्हें खराब कर रहे हैं, हम ही उनको टेलीविजन ऑन करके दे रहे हैं, हम ही उनके हाथ में मोबाइल पकड़ा रहे हैं, बिकॉज वो टाइम हम अपना कहीं और यूटिलाइज करना चाहते हैं. वी डू नॉट वांट टू गेट डिस्टर्ब. सो दैट इज व्हाट एक्चुअली द चिल्ड्रन आल्सो अंडरस्टैंड द साइकी ऑफ द पेरेंट्स, सो दे आर टेक एडवांटेज ऑफ दैट. This is where we have to really work. There should be face-to-face, vartalap, more face-to-face interaction than on the Facebook. We are not, if you will say that your turban looks good, I will hardly register this comment of yours, but I'll be more busy how many likes I'll be getting on that Facebook, because that's going to give a kind of an adrenaline rush to me, and I'll be feeling very happy and good about that. So I think we have to be in the real world than in the virtual world. That's where we have to change. I still remember on several occasions I had been traveling from one place to other place, but hardly I've seen that there had been any tree on the roadside, whether their new construction has taken place, because most of the time I'm engrossed in the mobile phone. I think this habit is to be changed, where we have to interact, we have to see. Only then our brain will be able to absorb and will be coming out. This poetry will go missing, because hardly anybody will know whether the grass is green, the trees are tall, the poplars are tall, trees are not, because the children will be already seeing things here on the mobile phone. So इस शैतानी चरखे को हमें control करना है, where we have to be in a rationalized way. We have to give them this phone. We have to go for the rationing of this thing. And so far as the media, the students, I think what is the dayato, the responsibility of every journalist is that truth is God, that everybody knows. And it is almost near truth that what we should try to project. We should be very honest in our approach. We should try to be very honest whenever we are reporting about things. How we can go is that again we can start working on those case studies. If any of those media students, they can pick up one of the case studies, they can pick up that Rasana Katwa case, they can revisit that place of crime, they can interact with the family members, they should try to interact with the lawyers, what had been the situation, and then they can come out with a research paper, and that research paper will be helpful for the people to understand, because that will be the neutral viewpoint. Because when you are at a particular place, at times you are biased also. There are certain pulls and pressures also working on you, because you as an outsider can really work on that and you can do that. But as a reporter, I have to always see that no pull and pressure is really going to work. Because for me, what is very important is the evidence. Because in the court of law also, it is the evidence that works. It is not at the end of the day what the prime time shows are saying. What the judge, jury, and the same way the reporter is looking for is when he's going for, he will be talking to three sources, he'll be talking to the different people, he will try to interact with more and more people, and accordingly he will try to get the information, and then he'll be working on that. That report is going to be very neutral, it is going to be not biased, and that is going to be perfect. Because at the end of the day, the reader is the best judge, the viewer is the best judge. हम कितनी देर तक मूर्ख बनाएंगे? We can call murder a suicide a murder, but that's not really going to work. At the end of the day, there's already a forensic team that will decide whether it was a suicide or a murder. So not that I have to be the judge, the jury, and I have to come out with the judgment. That's not really going to work. So we have to not to in fact underestimate the intelligence of the common man and the viewer and the reader. So we should keep that in mind.
Very great and innovative solution you gave, sir. Thank you very much. So we'll move towards our next session, that is closing remark of this session. I request Amreen ma'am to come forward and please give a closing remark. Amreen ma'am.
Thank you so much, Sagarji. I feel after our eminent panelists have spoken and they have so very nicely, covered up all the aspects that we were trying to look, be it the ground reporting or the theoretical aspect that we so wanted to understand. So I believe that, no innovation is possible when you leave out 50% of the population of any country. And because of this, we need to not normalize this entire violence against women, and we have to work more, and not only women, as rightly, when we talk of gender, let us not just stick to any one, and let us look at a very inclusive approach, and only then will we be able to reach to a conclusion. So I feel that it would be my duty, in fact, to again, connect with the panelists and come out maybe, with some article or a report on this particular program, and getting more insights from other people also. Definitely work towards, bringing a solution. As I noticed that, where some of the comments were that what would be the solution to it. So this is not a question and answer. This is a struggle of independence again, which has gone forever, and we are still fighting it, and let us walk together on it and come up with solutions. And I believe each one of us who are here today, we believe in that change making process. So I would thank each one of you on behalf of Universal Reach Foundation that you all could make it here today, and I'm so very thankful. Thank you, Sagarji. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Amreen ma'am. Now, last part but important part, that is vote of thanks. I would like to request Professor Ram sir, who is very active member of Universal Reach Foundation. Sir, please come forward for the vote of thanks. Ram sir. Yeah.
Thank you, Sagar sir. It is a privilege for me to extend a vote of thanks on behalf of Universal Reach Foundation to all those who have contributed in one or other way to make this program a success. This program would not have been possible without the presence of esteemed panelists. I would like to thank Seema Tiwari ma'am, Dr. Aparna Phadke ma'am, and Dr. Pradeep sir. I would also like to thank our audience, without whose participation and involvement no such dialogue is complete. This social transformation can take place only when citizens raise their concern and demand justice. We would we would we would like to continue the future association also. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you very much, all the participants and panelists. Pradeep sir, Seema ma'am, and Phadke ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much.